Alright guys, you already know what time it is. UFC 314 is going down this Saturday and it's a big one. We've got a vacated featherweight title on the line and it's Alex Volkanovski taking on Diego Lopes. Now, I admit at first I was being a little bit biased, maybe even borderline delusional. I really thought Volk had this in the bag. I mean, it's Volk, right? One of the greatest featherweights ever. But the more I sat with it, the more I ran it back in my head, I started realizing this might actually be it. This could very well be the final fight in Volk's career. And it's not because he's choosing to walk away, but because Diego might take him out. And I mean take him out. I'm starting to lean towards Diego winning by knockout. And look, I'm not saying that Volkanovski cannot win. He's one of the best to ever do it, and nobody's denying that. But if we're going to be honest, I think there's a very real chance that Diego Lopes finishes him early, like round 1 or round 2 type of early. And I know that sounds bold, but when you really look at their styles and where these two are at in their careers, it kind of lines up, because Diego is a nightmare in those first 2 rounds. He's just big, he's powerful, confident, and just chaotic. He's not one of those guys who lets you find your rhythm. He's in your face, swinging wildly, keeping a high guard, and he's completely fine eating a few shots just to land one of his own. And that's the scary part for Volk, man. A lot of his own success comes from setting the pace, using his jab to control the tempo, keeping the distance, chipping away, and just gradually breaking guys down over time. But with Diego, you don't really get that luxury. He's not going to sit back and let you find your rhythm. He's throwing heat every time that you're in the pocket. Wild, powerful, dangerous shots. And here's the thing, Volk doesn't have that kind of crazy knockout power to make guys respect him right away. Like even Ilia Topuria didn't respect his power. You could see it. Topuria walked him down, stayed right in his face, took shots on the glove or even clean sometimes, and never flinched. That says a lot. And I expect the same kind of energy from Diego. He's going to come in with that confidence, knowing that he can eat one to land one. And honestly, that's the worst case scenario for someone like Volk. Now look, I know what some of you guys are going to say. Diego Lopes doesn't have the best cardio. Now that's a fair point. There's always a chance that Volk can survive those early rounds and drag him into deep water. That's where Volkanovski thrives, right? Round 3, 4, and 5. Wearing guys down, staying sharp, chipping away. But man, that pressure that Diego brings in those first 7 to 8 minutes, it's nasty. He doesn't just walk you down, he hunts. He fights like someone who knows that he needs one clean shot to change the fight. And with the way that Volk has been looking recently, I think he's gonna get it. I really do. I don't think Volkanovski is the same anymore. I hate to say it, but it feels like that chin is gone. Because back-to-back knockouts, especially that brutal one from Ilia Topuria, it kind of changes guys. That wasn't just a TKO or a ref stoppage. That was a clean, cold knockout. You don't walk away from that, ever the same, in my opinion. Even if you're Volkanovski. And yeah, he's saying all the right things. He's got believe in himself. He's a pro. He's mentally strong. But deep down, you got to think there's some hesitation now. You'd be crazy now to feel some nerves after something like that. And let's be real, even the most confident fighters are a little bit delusional. That's part of what makes them who they are. Of course, Volk believes in himself, but I think there's going to be a moment of hesitation in those first couple of rounds. He might look good early, he might land a few clean shots, but if he gets caught slipping just once, it could be all over. Because Diego Lopes is that dude, and we gotta talk about what makes him so damn dangerous. And it is his kicks. Because even though Diego Lopes isn't exactly known for being a heavy kicker, when he does throw them, they're sneaky as hell and they matter. I mean, go back and watch that sequence against Ortega. Diego hides that high kick beautifully. It looks like it's going to go to the body. Ortega bites hard and then boom, it's wrapped right around the guard and clips him clean upstairs. Now here's why that's a big deal against Volk. Volkanovski has never dealt well with kicks, especially when they're mixed up between the body and the head. Islam kind of exposed that in their second fight. People want to act like, oh, Volk just wasn't in shape, it was in short notice, which is a good point. However, I would argue it was because a stylistic problem. Islam threw kicks up top and to the body, and Volk had to choose where to defend it. That's dangerous, especially when you're the shorter guy trying to work your way in. And remember, Max Holloway dropped Volk with a head kick too. This isn't new, it's a pattern now. It's something that any good coach is going to pick up on in film study. So even if the kicks aren't Diego's go-to, don't be surprised if his team drills that into their game plan. Volk keeps his hands busy, he's small for the division, and Diego has the reach and the timing to sneak one in. So when you're talking about a guy who's already bringing huge power, aggressive counters, and dangerous grappling, you add in a threat of a head kick, now Volk has even more to think about. That hesitation we were talking about earlier, that doubt from that knockout, it's gonna get worse when you're trying to read punches, hooks, takedowns, and now this guy's kicks flying at your head. And that's why I think that Diego Lopes is just a nightmare matchup for Volk right now. Every strength he brings hits Volk in a vulnerable spot. And while sure, if Volk gets through those first couple rounds, it's a different story, but that's a huge if, because surviving Diego Lopes when he's fresh and firing, that's a hell of a mountain to climb. Alright, so here's another little gripe I've got, because I've been thinking about this a lot. If Volk ends up winning, I would be happy for him. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Volk more than Diego Lopes as a person and as a fighter overall. I followed his career for years, and there's a part of me that always wanted to see him win. But here's the thing, if he wins this fight, I think it's not a good look for the featherweight division. Like, from a prestige standpoint, it's kind of a messy thing. You've got a guy who just got knocked out at lightweight, then came back to the featherweight division and got flatlined by Ilia Topuria, and now Topuria vacates the belt after beating Max Holloway, and Volk's the guy he just beat is back in there winning the same title. That's kind of weird. That doesn't feel like progress. That feels more like we're hitting the rewind button. It cheapens the belt a little. Like, imagine being a casual fan and seeing the guy who just lost for the title suddenly back on top just because the new champ left. It makes the division look shallow. Like, no one else was good enough to step up, so we got to give it back to the old king, even though he's clearly not the same anymore. So as much as I respect Volk, I kind of feel like if Diego Lopes wins, it's just better for the division. It sets a new tone. It creates a new wave of contenders. It gives the weight class a fresh chapter. I'm not saying I'm rooting against Volk, but man, if this division wants to stay exciting and legit, it might need someone like Diego to carry it forward. Now look, I'm not saying it's impossible for Volk to win. He's still insanely skilled. The guy's a technician. He's battle tested. And if anyone can make adjustments mid-fight and survive the chaos, it's him. There is a path to victory here. It's just a narrow one. He has to survive the early storm. Those first 7 to 8 minutes when Diego Lopes is so fresh and fast, trying to take your head off, is scary. Now, if he can get past that, start slowing down the fight, start clinching, maybe even drag Diego against the cage and wear on him, that's where things get interesting. If Volk can get to round 3, 4, and 5, and Diego starts to fade the way he did against Dan Ige, then yeah, Volk can take over. He's got the experience, the gas tank, the IQ. That's where he thrives. Dirty boxing, leg kicks, body work, mixing in level changes, all that stuff starts to build up over time. And if Diego Lopes is no longer explosive and sharp by then, Volk can pick him apart and maybe even stop him late. But here's the thing, I just don't think it's likely, not this time, and not in this version of Volk. We're talking about a 36-year-old guy coming off 2 brutal losses, 2 brutal knockouts, and not just TKOs, one of them was a clean, scary knockout from Topuria that had people worried. That takes something away from you, both mentally and physically. The chin might not be the same. The reaction time might slow down a little bit. And whether he admits it or not, there's gonna be hesitation. And look, I'll say this too, if this was prime Volk we were talking about, I honestly like his chances a whole lot more. Like back when he was on top of the world, full of confidence, elite boxing, great fight IQ, he was just outclassing dudes left and right. He was sharp, durable, and had this calm control about him that made him feel untouchable at times. Now, I'm not saying he's suddenly washed or anything, but Volk is going to be confident. That's just who he is. But after those back-to-back knockouts, I do think there's going to be a little bit of self-doubt creeping in, just enough to make him hesitant in moments where he's used to acting instinctively. And at this level, with a guy like Diego throwing bombs your way, even a second of a hesitation can be deadly. Featherweight primes come and go fast. That's just the truth when you're dealing with the smaller weight class. These guys rely on speed, reaction time, explosiveness, things that can start slipping away once you hit your mid-30s. And if this was Volk before the damage, before the knockout from Topuria, I feel confident in him surviving the early storm, leaning in his wrestling and grinding out a decision win. That's just how good he was. But now, I just don't see it the same way. Maybe he pulls it off, who knows, but this is where I'm gonna stay with. This version of Volk isn't the same guy, and against someone like Diego Lopes, I truly believe that matters.